Ventresca.
Yeah, this is the Joel Ventresca.
Yes, is this Jonathan Master?
Yes, sir. Masters, it's plural, but there is only one of me, so that would be.
Let me, before I answer your questions, let me make sure I got the correct spelling of your name and your email address. So, Jonathan is Jon.
It's JONMASTERS, and then the email.
Wait, too fast. JON.
Sorry about that. It's MASTERS. MAS.
Okay, so John is just JON, first name.
Correct.
And last name is
MASTERS.
Okay, with the plural. Okay, and your email address?
SLV Revolutions. SLV, as in like San Luis Valley. SLV.
Okay, you're going too fast, so go slower for the email address.
Okay. SLV.
SLV.
Revolutions.
Revolution, the word.
At,
got it.
at gmail.com.
Gmail.com. Okay, so it's SLVREVOLUTION at gmail.com. Because when we're done, I can send you my flyer. I have a campaign flyer, and then you can look at it. Okay, well, let's go through your questions.
It's plural. The SLV Revolutions. I don't know if you mentioned the S at the end of Revolutions, so there's an S at the end of it.
Revolutions. I'm sorry.
No, that's okay.
So SLVREVOLUTIONS plural at gmail.com.
Precisely.
Okay, thanks for being a good listener. I just would have thought you. Okay, but anyway, let's go through your questions.
Yeah. Okay. Cool, man. Thank you for calling me back. And I guess just how are things going? Just how's the campaign going? Are you getting traction? Are you getting some media attention? And how do you feel?
Well, the question 2 on the ballot in California is the key one. It only becomes important if Newsom is fired. So the first question is, should Newsom stay or go? And if he's fired by the electorate, of course, it takes 50% of the electorate by next Tuesday. But if he's fired, then the key question becomes, okay, who should replace him as governor immediately upon the election being certified, about a month after the deadline, or after the election.
It seems like it'd be a good idea for Gavin Newsom to pick a backup just in case.
Well, he believes he's God, and no one can replace him, so he's urging people to vote against the recall, and he's urging people not to vote on the second question at all. And it's really odd that a Democrat would be suppressing the vote on question 2.
Yeah, that's my thing. Is when I'm looking at this, just I'm a political science major. Just on a political science perspective, you're telling the voters to cut half their power, because what happens? Like, it's a 50-50 choice, right? Do you recall him or don't you? And if you flip a coin and it doesn't go your way, well, you pick the backup, right? No, you didn't even pick a backup. It makes no sense. But I'm wondering, maybe there might be a little bit of logic to what they're saying, because if in your mind, just like
what he's doing is rigging the election.
Yeah, he very much is. He's using the election, holding it hostage, kind of saying like, yeah.
He governs by, of course, incompetence and corruption, but also the key feature of his administration is fear. He's peddling fear, angst, anxiety, worry. People are worried about the future of California, and I think, I want to reimagine California's future without Gavin Newsom, because I think he's terrible, because he is corrupt, he is incompetent, and he governs by fear. And also, as I said before, a Democrat urging people not to vote on question 2 to replace him if he's fired, that is just unconscionable. It's undemocratic, and it's irresponsible, and it may...
It's dumb. It's dumb. It's dumb. It's, you know what it tells me? It's almost telling me that they're saying they would rather give the election to the Republicans than to some alternative progressive, you know, that's out there. They would rather just throw the election away than if you don't pick me, then I'll throw the whole election. I'll throw the whole state away. And it's like you're throwing a temper tantrum over one of the biggest states in the country. It's like...
Yes, well, I agree with that, and of course, if a person takes a hard look at the 9 Democrats who are on the list of replacement candidates, I am the most qualified. I'm the top most qualified Democrat on the ballot. I have significant government experience. I was a city commissioner in San Francisco. I've been fighting government corruption for 25 years. So I'm a veteran of fighting, you know, for the public interest and against corruption, and I'm a Democrat. I was runner-up in the Democratic Party for mayor of San Francisco in 2019, just 2 years ago. So now Newsom's strategy was not to have any elected Democrats on the list of replacement candidates, and of course you can only do that with favors and fear. So Newsom, as governor, used favors and fears to scare off all the other elected Democrats at the federal, state, county, regional, local level, which is really odd. Not a single currently elected Democrat is on the list of replacement candidates. But anyway, there are 9, and there are 9 Democrats on the list of replacement candidates, and with that small group of 9, I'm clearly the most qualified of the 9.
I'll take your word for it. Let's get into the progressive your policies. Let's talk about some of the policies, because I feel like that's the Hannity, they do this all the time, but the Republicans, they're already hammering Gavin Newsom is getting recalled because of his progressive agenda. Would you say that he's instituted a progressive agenda for California?
No. Gavin Newsom is a corporate establishment insider Democrat.
A neoliberal, would you say? So go ahead. Neoliberal, would you say neoliberal?
No, liberal, progressive. He doesn't do that.
Oh,
what he does is he does top 1% economic politics, you know, the richest people who finance his campaign. He's a multimillionaire. He funds his campaign. Right now he's raised $81 million to stay in office the next 5 years.
I read a couple things. He did something with the death penalty and fracking, and then marijuana. He got marijuana finally legalized. But I felt like those are 3 little things, and I'm like, can you turn that into a progressive agenda? Then I heard fracking. He went ahead and gave like 12 permits out to some company. So he, you know, had a moratorium at first, and then, you know, kind of.
Well, let's hit those 3 progressive actions that you think he took. But when you look at it more closely, you find out it was just for press conferences. It was for framing. It was to get national attention to promote himself for the White House.
So would you say he's a Republican? I mean, that's what it sounds like you're saying to me. He's basically a Dino. Why would you be a Democrat if you're not a progressive or a liberal, if you just have a bunch of conservative, you know, corporatist, right-wing policies?
Well, the variables that define Newsom, from my perspective, and I've known him for the whole 24 years he's been in elective office, because he came out of the corrupt machine in San Francisco, and I've been fighting the same corrupt machine. He's been in elective office for 24 years. He's a Willie Brown protege who's notorious when he was the Speaker of the Assembly in Sacramento. Then he was a 2-term mayor of San Francisco, and then his handpicked mayor that followed him was Gavin Newsom, and he got so bored with the job he left after 7 years to become lieutenant governor. And by the way, you heard about the Gavin Newsom never solved the homeless crisis in San Francisco when he was mayor for 7 years, but now he claims he's going to help solve the homeless crisis in California, which he won't.
Well, he had 3 years. He had 3 years to do it. He brags about 40,000 homes, but there's 160,000 people that don't have homes. So.
Okay, but anyway, those three things. First of all, the marijuana thing was he did do a statewide ballot measure, which passed, which legalized recreational use of marijuana for 21 and older, not for minors, but 21 and older. It was okay. And then Newsom, and he only did it to get attention on his lead up to being elected governor in 2018. So it's really, he didn't really support. I mean, for example, what I want to see is I want a politician, which I would do, I want a politician who's going to end the war on drugs.
Yeah.
And stop it. Okay, because 40% of the people in our jails and prisons are because of possession or using or selling small quantities of illegal drugs. That's 40%. Every person in the state prison, it costs $140,000 to do that. So, and often the possession, usage, or selling small quantities of illegal drugs, there's no violence involved. It's like a transaction where no one is threatening violence or using violence or anything like that. So if I became the next governor, I would end the war on drugs. Newsom has continued the war on drugs.
And he promised to end it. He promised, and actually Larry Elder, that seems to be an issue that's even the Republican agrees on, in the war on drugs. I would dive into that one a little bit. You're saying legalize all drugs, or would you say like legalize like just mushrooms and cocaine, but not crack and heroin or something, or just legalize everything and put it in a red light district, or how would you do it?
21 and older adults. Every 3 years, you have to go like something like through the DMV, like a test. Go to a workshop where you know the risks and the dangers of certain drugs, because there is danger of overdose in some of the
Well,
drugs.
some drugs, just like crocodile. You ever heard of crocodile or devil's breath? Like there's some drugs that just like it warps your mind to a point it turns you into a zombie where you're just compliant, and with devil's breath, they've actually said that you'll rob your own house and you'll tell them where all your valuables are, and devil's breath is you just blow dust.
Well, let me tell you what I would do as governor, and then you can go to the worst case scenario.
I just feel like there's like crocodile. Looks like it just melts your arm. Yeah, go ahead. I'm listening. You're right. I'll listen. Go ahead.
What I would do is, in this sense, I'm a libertarian. I believe an adult, 21 and older, has a right to put anything in their body or take anything out of their body without any government interference. And the only condition is you can't endanger other people, meaning you can't do crimes,
Right.
You can't. But the way I look at it is...
That's awesome. That's exactly right. That's right.
Now, the way I look at it is it makes no sense to have state inmates in prison for the drug issues that I've raised, possession, usage, or selling small quantities. It makes no sense to put them in state prison, and every year the taxpayers have to pay $120,000 for that. I'd rather put the $120,000 in, to improving education, public education. But the way I would do it is I would legalize it, and for adults, and of course you go to prison if you sell it to minors. So if you're 21 and older and you get it and you sell it to minors, you go to prison.
Right.
So you can't do that. You can't corrupt the youth.
Right. Good.
Because you could be endangering them and hurting them, and sometimes kids don't understand what they're involved with. So what you do is 21 and older, you legalize it. You have every 3 years you have to go through an orientation or a workshop. You get a card, you get a government issued ID for it, and all I'm going to do is put it in pharmacies. You go to the pharmacy, and what you want, if you can afford it, great. And if you can't afford it, we'll subsidize it. We just don't want you to do we don't want you to do burglaries. We don't want you to do crimes to pay for the drugs that you crave. Okay, so I would legalize it all for adults. You go to the pharmacy, if you can pay for it, great. If you can't pay for it, we'll still give it to you. We'll track all the data. So if we have a big explosion in overdoses, we may have to modify the program, of course. But and then also, you can't go to work high. You can't operate equipment like a public bus or an airplane. You can't do that. and so you can't endanger other people. And of course, if you do, you'll be prosecuted for that because no one has the right to hurt someone else. So the way I look at it is, and then also I'll provide 24/7 addiction programs where a person can come in and say, I'm addicted to something, and we'll get them into a program where we will help them break the addiction over the next 6 months. And so I would offer that ongoing because I know addiction is a problem. But I'm getting rid of all the selling of drugs on the streets. That all ends. Everybody just goes to a pharmacy. It's somewhat anonymous for the individual. You know, you get a bag, you get what you've requested. We keep track of it. We have your picture ID. We track the data. We can modify the government program. But the idea is I want to basically end mass incarceration. A lot of it's related to illegal drug trade. And I want to normalize it, and I want people to understand what the risks are. And then the way I envision it is you get off work on Friday, you go to the pharmacy, let's say you get marijuana, you go home, you can be high until Monday when you have to, sober up and go to work.
And if you figure out how to work from home, then you can just stay high your whole life.
Well, yeah, that's fine too. But if you do have to drive to work, you have to be sober. You can't be.
No, I like it. I like that how you're essentially. I'm a left libertarian myself, so I believe that we should take care of the poor, but the government shouldn't get into my business.
Okay. So what I've said consistently through the campaign, and of course this is a game changer, is I will end homelessness, poverty, mass incarceration, and the war on drugs, and I will have comprehensive programs on all 4 programs, and because it's going to cost a lot to do it, but in the long run will save money.
What were the 4? You said homelessness and poverty.
I am committed to ending homelessness, poverty, mass incarceration, and the war on drugs. These are heavy problems in California. I will have comprehensive programs to solve these problems. And I'm not talking about governing by a press conference or some stupid task force. I'm talking about actually helping the people that are suffering in these 4 areas and making sure they have a path towards, a better life. And of course, we want people to break their addiction if they want to do that. But and we don't want people to go in and out of state prison.
Oh man, that sounds. Okay, yeah, go ahead. It sounds awesome.
Okay, so but I'm committed to, and I believe these are the top 4 issues, and they're somewhat interrelated. There's some overlap, but if we end homelessness, poverty, mass incarceration, war on drugs in California, we can show the rest of the nation how to do it. And everybody who's adversely affected by these 4 things, I want them to have a chance of opportunity to move to a better life. But I'm not going to send them to prison. I'm not going to have them living under freeways. And I don't want children being raised in poverty because it hurts their ability to concentrate on their education.
Bernie Sanders says that poverty is a death sentence.
Well, what I want to do is end these 4 things, and then I want to create, I want to advance groundbreaking opportunity for all individuals, particularly those that are affected by these 4 programs. And by the way, when somebody comes out of state prison, I'm going to make sure they have part-time or full-time work, that they have conditions, that they have to continue their training and education. They have to have part-time or full-time work. They can't associate with other criminals, of course, and they can't engage in criminal contact. And if they don't meet the conditions, then they go back to state prison, because they're not ready. They're not ready to re-enter society and be an asset instead of a detriment.
Finland has a housing first model for combating homelessness. Do you agree with that?
Well, the first thing is we have about 160,000 homeless, and I'm at the level where we have to have clean bathrooms and 3 healthy meals and medical and dental services and a shelter where people can have a place so they don't have to sleep out in the elements, and they have access to email and telephone and mail services, and they have a little storage space, and we can make sure that people can, concentrate on hygiene. So, we don't want any crime or disease spreading in homeless shelters. But the first thing we got to do is get them into a program where they can see a path out of their predicament. And of course, we won't tolerate any crime at homeless shelters, and of course, we're not going to be enabling drug use. When I ran for mayor in 2019, a homeless person asked me in a subway when I was passing out flyers, he wanted to shoot up illegal drugs in the homeless shelter. I said, well, I can't enable that. So anyway, but basically, I'm interested in making sure people have a safe place to sleep. There's meals, there's dental, medical care.
Eventually, once they get through like the 10-step program, whatever, do they get housing at the end of it?
Yeah, well, now to build housing takes 5 to 10 years. So, but I have an immediate crisis of 160,000 people homeless living out on the streets.
Well, Angeline, she said just let them stay in the parks for right now. And then, did you know that there's 5 empty houses for every single homeless person? So really, it's just a coordination failure. You just got to find the empty buildings and the homeless people and put them together.
Okay, well, any property owner who owns a vacant housing unit that should be occupied, I will tax them every year, and it will keep increasing until they fix up the apartment and they get a tenant inside of it. So a vacant
Very good.
apartment,
Very good.
A vacant apartment for me means you got to get it into the market so we can have places for people to live,
Right.
particularly low, moderate, middle-income people. And if you're playing some kind of game,
Well,
we're not going to let you do that. We're going to have an increasing, escalating tax.
Good. That's brilliant. That is so smart.
Until you get right. And keep in mind that Newsom, last year, there was a statewide ballot measure, and Newsom stood with the big landlord, and he killed rent control at the county and city level throughout the entire state of California.
I can't stand, like, you know, I'm mixed socialist capitalist, but I can't stand absentee landlords because they're not good for, you know, socialists. They're not good capitalists. They're just not good for anybody. It depresses everybody's property when you just leave that building just grow, you know, broke windows and just deteriorates. It takes everybody's property rates down. So absentee landlords, I just can't stand absentee landlords.
I agree with what you just said. Property sector landlords, they have a responsibility to the community and their neighbors to manage their property responsibly. Now, if they don't bring it up to code or they don't get it occupied by a tenant, and by the way, most real estate in California keeps expanding in value. So you can go get a bank loan and renovate it and bring the apartment onto the market and get people in, you know, get tenants in there. So there's really no excuse.
Yeah, there isn't. What's rent? Like $1,000 a month now in California. So God, if you just have a tiny little room, right? You can make $500 off of it probably.
Well, I live in San Francisco, which are based on a recent study, the second highest housing cost for tenants.
What's a median rent in San Francisco?
It's my rent is $4,250.
Oh my God!
And I'm a retiree, so I can afford it because I worked for the city and county of San Francisco for 34 years. But literally half my income is going to pay my rent, and that's pretty common in San Francisco. And is again the second highest rental rates in the nation of all the cities compared. It is San Francisco. But I'm running for governor, and what I want to do is have rent control at the county and city level where we can stabilize rents and where possible bring rents down, because some of the rents are really crazy. You know, like, I mean, some...
You know.
And so the people are gaming the system, and then people are paying these high rents, and then they can't meet their other needs. And so what's going on is, the way I like to think of it is, Newsom represents a rigged economic and political system, and it's all set up to make the super rich richer, and the rest of us, we get pushed down the economic ladder. And that's what Newsom's been doing for 24 years since he's been in elective office. And so he really doesn't care about low, moderate, middle-income people. And by the way, Newsom will not increase taxes against. He will not increase taxes on wealthy individuals or wealthy corporations in the state of California. He just won't do it. And based on polling, the gap between the rich and the poor, based on polling, shows that most Californians know the gap is expanding. And most Californians know by around two-thirds that whatever they thought was the California dream, it's become, you can't get there, and it's become a California nightmare. And you know, thanks to Newsom and the policies he's represent. But anyway, let me back up to these three things that you brought up that people seem to misunderstand. They think he's a.
Can I ask? I got like some yes or no policy questions. Can we get on to those, and then we can go back to because I like the poverty and the homelessness, and we could talk about Newsom. I just the progressive agenda. You're from California, so you would know if he had a progressive agenda or not. He very much feels like a right winger. And so if he did not have a progressive agenda, then that means the Democrats didn't even try. The Democrats didn't even try, right? If you didn't have a progressive agenda, you're going to say that, well, look at the progressive agenda, we threw it out. You didn't even try a progressive agenda. So let's actually get somebody in there that is promising a progressive agenda and then try it. That's my sort of perspective.
Well, Newsom is not a progressive or a liberal Democrat. As I said, he's a corporate establishment insider Democrat.
And I believe you. I believe you.
And corrupt.
So release the otters. Yes or no?
Okay, now the first question, run that one by me again.
Release the otters. There's one plank for one of your opponents' platforms is to save the coastlines of California. They want to release the otters. Apparently, somehow the otters protect the coastlines.
Okay, well, I'm a former city and county of San Francisco environmental commissioner, and I've never heard of such a thing. I do try to stay up to date on.
It was Angeline,
California. Who is proposing that?
Angeline.
Yeah,
the billboard icon.
A kind response would be, well, I might study that if I got to the governor's office. Maybe not so kind is, it might be she doesn't know what she's talking about.
I like both answers. High-speed rail.
Okay, what was the second one?
High-speed rail.
One of the things I want to do is reinvent California into the first zero carbon emission state in the nation. One of the ways to do that, it's essential, is that we have to get people out of airplane seats because there's a lot of carbon emissions and we don't know how to reduce those yet. But we have to get people out of airplane seats and we have to get them onto high-speed train seats between the major cities in the state of California. And in light of the fact that a lot of people are facing an hour or more commute, you know, people can get on a train, work on their laptop, and, you know, move between the major cities and still do commerce efficiently. But they don't need to get on airplanes and, you know, dump all that carbon emissions into the atmosphere driving global warming. So high-speed trains, even though it's been sort of like go, stop, it's an essential component to move people on the ground with electricity, with renewable energy that's clean, not nuclear, and move a lot of people between our major metropolitan areas. And people who tend to do this, they are workers and professionals, and it's an essential part of our economy that we get people out of airplane seats and we get them onto high-speed trains. So I'm definitely in support of it. I will speed it up if I become the governor.
It'd be cool. I wonder how fast do you think you could get from the top of California to the bottom of California using high-speed trains? In an hour? You think you could make it in an hour?
I think it's probably between an hour and an hour and a half.
Wouldn't that be awesome? That would be so awesome. That would just be fun just to do.
By the time you go to the airport and you stand in line and you get on the plane and then there's delays on the runway and then you get up in the air and you fly from here to San Diego or from here, San Francisco to L.A., it's essentially, it'll be the same amount of time.
Right. And then all that jet fuel. I mean, like you're saying, I mean, it cuts back on so much pollution, too.
Exactly. So we have to do high-speed trains. California can do it. We have about 5 major cities, and of course,